Baltimore. What's going on, Baltimore? We are here at the 2023 CIAA basketball men and women's tournament here in Baltimore, and we are having a great time. And you can see I am here representing the CIAA. There we go. Very much here representing the CIAA and HBCUs. My name is Troy Lamel Stovall. I serve as the CEO of TEDCO, Maryland's innovative place for technology and life sciences companies to grow and start and stay in Maryland. I am here today. We talk a lot about the ecosystem here in Maryland and the role that it plays, and people may not understand all what that means about an ecosystem, but to have our larger companies having a significant role in helping smaller companies grow and become bigger companies. I'm here with generally a friend of TEDCO, a friend of the ecosystem, a friend of Maryland Franklin, a friend of mine. I'm here with Brian Pieninck, the CEO of CareFirst BlueShield. Brian, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm as your friend, I'm trying to figure out how I get CIAA swag. You know? You're representing.
I'm trying, brother.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Really appreciate the invitation. Love to have a conversation with you. Looking forward to it.
I've been looking for this for a long time. We've talked about this for a minute, so today is a special day for me. So let's first talk about you. You've had a great year. We'll talk about Blue Cross and Blue Shield and what that means and being what a CEO means of that. But I want to start with because we got some intel on you, bro. We got some intel on you, and so we know about something about a Thanksgiving bird.
Oh, you've been hyping up this intel for weeks now, and this is what it is? This is where we're going?
I got more.
This is where we're going.
I got more.
All right.
Tell me about this bird.
Tell you about the bird. All right, so Thanksgiving is our holiday.
Okay.
This is our holiday.
So it's a big, is it a lot
This
of
is a big deal.
How many people we talking about?
So ever since Kelly and I, Kelly's my wife, ever since Kelly and I got together, even before we got married, this was the holiday we declared. Okay. Every year, people are coming to us. And so it's gone anywhere from 25, 30 people at our house sleeping over, laying on the couch for a couple of days, down
That's
to like
old school.
The small, intimate setting through the pandemic. But we get together, we cook for a few days. What I love about
days, plural.
Days, plural. You got to do it right. You got to do it right.
I think I'm gonna look for an invitation for Thanksgiving.
Well, you are invited if I get a jacket. That's all I'm saying. If I get a jacket, you're invited to next Thanksgiving.
Fair enough.
But no, this is a big deal for our family, and what I love about it is that it's a celebration of people.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
There you go.
It's all of the most amazing parts of every holiday that doesn't involve the gifts and the presents and all of like that. It's just being together, eating good food together. So
that tells me a lot about you. And
it's our favorite holiday.
So even more on you, so we've talked about this, is that you're first gen. So I want to let our audience hear about a little bit. Again, we don't need the rest because you got an amazing resume. They can go look on LinkedIn. But talk about being a first gen and how you go from being a first generation student to being the CEO of Care. I mean, there's a big gap there.
Yeah.
So talk a little about that.
I mean, I feel grateful. Even just having you ask the question, I feel grateful. This isn't something I always used to talk about. It's these are the things that you learn with life's experience. What you talk about and how you talk about and the impact that it has with other people. But I'm a first-generation college grad. My brother's a first-generation college grad. We were two boys, 21 months apart.
Wow.
And I always say what my parents gave us was just a phenomenal sense of self, a work ethic, and a sense that we could accomplish anything that we set our minds and our bodies toward.
I love it.
Right? And so it wasn't about traditional education. We didn't have a college plan, but we had a family that said learn, grow, do, build, act, move, and a sense that we could do that.
There's entrepreneurship in there.
A sense of entrepreneurship. And so I didn't always used to talk about that, but I joined my first company when I was 18, and I had learned how to program out of a book. And I was going to school, community college. Started out in community college. Shout out to Dr. Dukes.
There you go.
Community college is where I got my start.
Yeah.
And they offered me the flexibility of phenomenal education that allowed me to work full time and go to classes Tuesdays and Thursday nights before they had things like online education. And it took me years, many a night, in the business center at 1 o'clock in the morning working on papers in between meetings and trips to get my undergraduate degree in 2016 to become a CEO in 2018. So it's been a journey, and we worked every step of the way, but it was
I want people to understand
worth it.
2016 is when he got his degree.
That's right. I got my undergrad in business in 2016.
From Southern New Hampshire, correct?
Southern New Hampshire University. That's right.
And now you became CEO in?
2018.
Wow.
5 years this summer.
Outstanding. Bro, congrats.
Thank you so much.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful story,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, give it up. Give it up for Brian. Give it up. So let's talk about CareFirst. I think when most people hear CareFirst, they think of, okay, that's my insurance carrier. That's, so I got to pay my premium to, and I may have, sometimes issues with the doctors with them, but it's obviously more than that. Yeah. So I want to give folks a chance to really see, and if I may, people might also be asking, wait a minute, this is TEDCO, right? And this is a healthcare company. What's the connective tissue?
What's the connective? You know the connective tissue. I wouldn't be here if you didn't know the connective tissue, but you want me to share. You want me to share. Yes, yes. So 80%. I want everybody to remember this number, 80%. 80% of my health, 80% of your health, 80% of your health is informed by social and environmental circumstances. Yep. 80%. Yep. That means your health today and your health trajectory into the future is determined not by things like healthcare delivery, not by things like treatment of disease, right? Those things matter and are important, but the most significant factor in your health and health trajectory is environmental and social circumstances that exist around you throughout the course of your life. So when we talk about why this is important, it's an ecosystem, right? This is the health ecosystem that exists around the people that we serve.
I love it.
And exists around the companies that serve.
I love it.
And so that connective tissue, that's why we're here. That's why we're sitting here.
Yes, I love it. That's exactly. No, look, and the role, technology has a role in all of that. Technology and access to technology, whether it's access to broadband, whether it's access to computers, whether it's access to just basic technologies.
Transportation.
Yeah. Those all go to the social determinants of how people get delivery and have access to to healthcare. So one of the connective tissues, other than just our Prominent network, is we're here in Maryland. We're, by the time people view this, the tournament will be over. They'll know who won it. But we're in the process of spending time. We just have a new governor. We got a significant turnover in the legislature here in Maryland. And what's happening is there's a real come-to moment where, and the governor says this quite well in his speech. He talked about Maryland is asset-rich but strategy-poor. And just to give our viewers continued numbers, I think we said before, we lead the country in terms of the number of people who have degrees. We lead the country in terms of the federal labs that we have. I mean, we have a very educated workforce here. Yet, what we found in the study that we did, we're not growing at the pace in technology jobs that we should be growing. And some of that is due to a lack of strategy at a state level. So Brian and others in the ecosystem are very much behind an effort that we have here that TEDCO's been asked to lead, called Cultivate, which is how do we begin to look differently to invest in what we call the people, or workforce, and the places. And so I guess, Brian, that was a long-winded way to get to why that's important for Brian and why that's important for CareFirst.
Yeah, and I agree with the governor. I agree with the governor. And I would also say that we have a better opportunity today because of alignment than we've had in recent years to do something about it. Because another way to say that is we are activity rich and outcome poor.
Oh, take that one, boy. We have to do something. Say that one again, bro.
It's not for a lack of effort and people doing things and gathering and talking and reflecting. We are activity rich and outcome poor.
Yeah.
And that means getting better organized.
Yeah.
It's about taking the information that we have, the data that we have, the things that we know, and activating effectively around it, leveraging those assets. And so from our perspective, I think that the alignment's never been greater. Yeah. There's never been a moment in time since I've been here. We came up from Atlanta most recently in 2015. We've been here for 7 years. Never been a time since I've been here where I think the public sector and the private sector is more ready to act together than we are.
What do you think that is?
Now.
What do you think that is?
I think mindsets change. I think having the right leadership in the right places that are willing to come together. I think people willing to do the difficult things, right, based on what's working and what's not working to affect change. It's hard work. I mean, if we sit and we allow the status quo to continue to permeate the environment, it won't change.
No. But
right?
It's the old adage of, what's the definition of insanity?
That's right. That's right. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
No, yeah.
But I think that there's a mindset shift, and I think even more important than the shifting of minds is the shifting of effort. People are beginning to realize that if we pool our resources in a common way for common purpose with common goals and common objectives, we can define and leverage that asset base more effectively.
Right.
Because there's places all around the country. You go all around the country, they look at a place like Baltimore and they say, Deepwater Harbor, incredible research infrastructure, both in the private sector and the public sector. Unbelievable physical location in terms of proximity to incredibly dense population centers.
Yep.
Education, an amazing education infrastructure and the second most educated population in the country.
Yep.
Right? And that's just scratching the surface. But I will say if big businesses like ours don't recognize that the foundation starts with entrepreneurism and small business, we're missing it.
So speak more on that, because I think that's the heart. Speak
Yeah,
more on
no,
that.
I think a lot of times in economic development, I think cities and states and companies, they tend to look at, well, how do we attract large organizations to come to this place? And I would say if you do interesting and effective things in that place, people will find you. And the interesting and effective things that we can do in this space starts with entrepreneurism and small business. If we grow and develop that foundation effectively, if we show that this is a place where small businesses can thrive, that is a place, that is an ecosystem and an environment that large organizations that are complementary to those efforts want to be. And we've got all the parts and pieces to pull that together. We've got to execute more effectively. We've got to stay committed to iterating and moving and holding ourselves accountable, not just to actions, but outcomes.
I love it. So part of what the study that, again, if you go to TEDCO Cultivate, you can see the study, you can see quotes from people like Brian Pieninck and a lot of great information there. But a strong ecosystem, to your point, kind of has four types of companies. You've got kind of the anchor institutions like a CareFirst, these big mega corporations. And then you've got kind of, in our world, kind of the pre-anchors, those people who are huge but not, again, super anchors. And then you got a real important layer there, Brian, of, you know, those kind of $10, $20 million, $30 million, who will always just be that size, but are just really strong. Yep. And then you got the startups. And strong ecosystems, the report says, have a velocity and a currency that goes, and as big companies have great ideas, they spin them out, and guess what? They become small companies, and the goal is to move them up and down.
It's a virtuous cycle.
Exactly.
And I would say this is, and we talk about this all the time at CareFirst, doing the right thing and doing the smart thing should be mutually inclusive.
I love it, bro.
Right? And so from our perspective, two of the most important business segments we have, individual and small group. Employers with 2 employees, employees with 50 employees, small businesses. Those are two most important business segments that we have. And so to the extent that that individual entrepreneur is thriving and successful in a local community, to the extent that a small and emerging business is thriving and successful, that is good for the large business environment as well.
I love it.
And so, you know, what does that help with? Well, we think of healthcare. People look at us and they say healthcare, and they say, well, you know, I don't want to be a doctor, I don't want to be a nurse. Yes, those are part of the healthcare ecosystem. You know what healthcare really is? $4.3 trillion of the U.S. economy.
Say that, and that's
$4.3 trillion of the U.S. economy is healthcare.
That's one of the biggest parts of the GDP,
it's
right?
over 18% of GDP.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, 10% of my workforce, technology. 10% of my workforce is technology. Right. And if your technology environment is thriving, my technology talent pool is thriving.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So you're here. We're here. We're CIAA Baltimore. Head up for CIAA in Baltimore. CareFirst is one of the key sponsors of this event that we're at, the Tech Summit that we're here, as well as the overall thing. So, you know, and CIAA is about HBCUs. It's about celebrating HBCUs and the beauty of HBCUs. I think many people that listen to this program know I've worked at a number of HBCUs in my career. So what I really want to, kind of the linkage, is talking about the role of diversity. And all of this work, we're talking about this economic development and talking about cultivate and talking about how do we think. But at some point, you got to reach those communities that, what we use, have been underinvested. Those entrepreneurs that have been underinvested. Those markets that have been underinvested. How does CareFirst see that as part of what you're doing?
Yeah, 100%. And we talk about our inside reality and our outside reality. Those two things need to relate to one another, what happens inside the organization and outside the organization. Here's the way we think about it. Healthcare is one of the most deeply personal things that we're ever gonna do. Yep. You can't imagine a set of circumstances where you are more physically vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable, financially vulnerable than healthcare. How do you get that right if you don't have representation? How do you get that right if you don't have representation? You are meeting a human being at one of the most vulnerable moments of their life. How do you design, develop, and deliver products unless you have representation at every step along the way? And so the way we think about this from an organizational perspective, beyond DE&I, the way we think about this from an organizational perspective is you've got to represent the communities that you serve. And so it was simple for us. We went out and we said, what makes up the communities that we serve? What is the makeup of the community? And then you know what we said? How do we compare inside the company to that outside world, to that outside customer base, to that outside community? And that's what informs our goals, our targets, how we compensate our team, both our executive leadership team, as well as our associates all across the organization, because if we can better connect design, development, and delivery in a representative way starting inside the organization, that comes to life outside the organization in an exponential way.
So it sounds like what you've done or what you're doing is tying performance. Because too many times, we talk about DEI as a project, as something that you do. But what I hear you've led there at CareFirst is it's a fundamental part of our strategy, and it's tied to the performance of the organization, not the other way around.
You get what you pay for.
Exactly.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And if it's important enough to your strategy and to your culture, it's data informed, it's measured, it's managed, and you pay for it.
And you hold people accountable.
And when you say me and Troy, that's generous.
Yeah.
We've got a board that's committed to this, an executive leadership team that's committed to this. We are a majority minority company. And so we have moved down this trajectory effectively over the years by incredible effort, shared effort, but we still have opportunities. And so we're honest with ourselves about where those opportunities are. We did an analysis a couple of years back, and our goals in our operating plan and our strategic plan include very specific expectations around representation. We are underrepresented in the Hispanic and Latinx community. We are underrepresented in people with disabilities. We are underrepresented with military veterans. These are areas specifically that we are focused on as an organization to continue that path to improvement.
Gotcha. So the background noise you hear, there's a lot of events going on. So people here, if you hear that, there's a lot of cool stuff happening. I got to ask Brian, because you made me thinking about your journey, your first generation journey. I got to imagine that's informed how you have this philosophy as a manager and how you think this broad glow. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's 100% fair. And I said to you earlier, right, I haven't always been comfortable talking about my journey, right? You know, you change, you grow, you develop. When I first started talking publicly with workforce about the fact that I was going to school part-time, I was enrolling in online classes, I was working on my undergraduate degree, you know what happened? The very next day, what happened? I started getting a huge influx of tuition reimbursement applications from people that I worked with. And I didn't fully appreciate at the time, Troy, I did not fully appreciate simply by giving voice to that reality in my journey that it was gonna open up someone else's perspective about what they may be able to accomplish in their life.
That's beautiful.
But that was our family, right? Our family was you can accomplish anything that you apply yourself to. But I'll take that and I'll connect that to how do you grow, right? How do you continue to grow that idea?
Love it.
I also recognize that my story is not equally true. If you look at the data, is not equally true, equally possible for every single person that lives in our society.
Gotcha.
Our society's not as receptive. And so those are the things that when you're in positions of power and you have positions of privilege and you have an opportunity and a platform, you have to affect those systems and structures to make that equally possible for every person that you work with.
We can preach on it. You're preaching. So look, I want to, because we're going to be coming to the end of this. And again, I appreciate your time, and I love being with you. Because I love the way you dress, because we love to dress. We love clothes. My man's a well-dressed man. I like to have my clothes. But I also know you like motorcycles. and you went on a little trip with your dad. Yeah. You want to talk about that? I got some intelligence on you, brother.
I don't know who you're talking to. You know what I mean? I'm actually getting a little concerned here. I don't know who you're talking to. So this is, my father worked 3 jobs. My mother took the civil service exam when we were kids and went to work for the post office. We were latchkey kids. we didn't take fancy vacations. I wasn't on a commercial airline until I was 18 years old.
Wow,
right?
wow.
And since then, I've traveled more than I ever cared to. But we didn't do things like that. That just wasn't part of our reality.
Yeah.
But one year, my father was supposed to take a motorcycle trip with a friend of his, and he bailed out last minute. And I'm in 3rd grade. My mother says, well, why don't you take Brian? It's like, it sounds like a pretty good idea. And so we took this trip up to New York, and I will tell you, that was a life-changing experience for me.
That's beautiful. How long was it? How many days?
So my father would save change. And he would save his change in this bank, and then we would go to the bank, and they would take all these rolled quarters and dimes and nickels and pennies and turn it into dollars. And whatever money we had, that turned into our trip. So it was anywhere from 5 days to a week. But I got to see every state on the East Coast, 4 Canadian provinces on the back of my dad's motorcycle, staying in campgrounds, rain or shine. But it gives you a different sense of the world around you. You know, that shaped my perspective.
That is beautiful. You got me crying.
Yeah.
So look, man, I appreciate you. Appreciate all you're doing for the ecosystem. I have a surprise for you. So again, we're here, and the other thing about Brian, he's a DJ, and so Sanjay, our event planner, has said
was a DJ.
You can
Past
go
tense, 20 years ago.
You can go downstairs and spin up a couple of records here for our friends here at the CIAA.
Yeah.
So that's
See, I thought this one was coming. You know what I mean? I think it was either this or maybe like a little one-on-one between me and you.
No, they are waiting on you.
Yeah. I'm taking a pass. It's been 20 years since I touched a turntable. I don't even think they have vinyl downstairs.
They don't. It's just a digital thing, man.
Yeah. See, we didn't have any of that. I was carrying milk crates of 12-inch vinyl into a gig, right? That was our idea of DJing back. Nowadays, like I don't even know what they're doing.
Well, look, Brian, thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here today. Again, this is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO. Thank you all very much. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you. Stay safe, stay sane, stay blessed, stay healthy. Peace out.